Hello everyone, welcome to our Truth Be Told YouTube channel with your hosts Rick Howard and Mike Maney.
Hello everybody. Welcome to our Truth Be Told YouTube page. Mike Maney and Rick Howard. And today is March the 9th, 2022.
22, that's our degrees here.
Oh, that's what it is. Is it 22 right now?
Yeah.
I think I noticed that, was it last night or is it going to be tonight? It's going to get down to like 5 degrees or 0 degrees or something like that.
I won't be out there.
Mike, this is almost the middle of March. What's going on? Is that normal for Missoula?
Every year is different. I just label it cold.
Well, we won't pass this on to the Missoula PR department. You know, that's Chamber of Commerce is trying to promote people moving to Missoula because people think it's almost the middle of March and it's down in the single digits.
Yeah, that'll turn the wagons right around, won't it, brother?
The U-Haul trucks will be going back, won't they?
Yes. It'll cause a traffic jam, Bill.
Well, I think the influx from California probably is slowing down because you've said enough have gone up to your area that to buy a house or to rent is just about as expensive there now as California.
It just shot right up. Yeah.
Makes it tough on the locals, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah. 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 I would chalk it up to being the spirit of this age.
I think I may have told you last week that I saw an interactive map and had like thousands of little black dots all in California.
Yes.
And then it started showing all the dots leaving California. It
Yes.
represented the people moving out of state.
Yes.
And those dots were going in all directions and to different states. And then once that was over, took about 30 seconds or so, then each state had a single black dot of a certain size, different from each other, that represented the total number of people that moved to that state. And I was surprised, that it wasn't like Florida wasn't very big, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, states I thought maybe more Californians be moving to. The biggest state that far east was Texas. It was one of the bigger size dots. So maybe in the top 3 or 4. But it surprised me that the largest dots were the states surrounding California: Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Arizona.
Interesting.
And, so, I've been through a lot of Arizona and Nevada. I've been to Oregon and Washington too, and they're beautiful states, but their politics aren't really that much different than California.
Right.
So maybe home prices are a little less, I'm not sure. But Arizona and especially Nevada, what I've seen of those two states, I wouldn't care to live in either state.
Right.
I think I'd put up with whatever negative aspects of California people think there are, instead of living in the middle of the desert of Nevada or something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care for that at all.
No, just going off of temperature, they really traded in a really good climate for a very bad climate.
But I thought the dots even like Idaho and Montana would be larger. But I guess they're just far enough away from California. A lot of people don't want to move. They want to move out, but they don't want to move that far.
So California is going to grow north and east and south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they didn't have any of that interactive dots of people from other states moving into California. I don't think there would be that much activity. I don't think there's many people moving into California.
They're working on that video right now.
Especially in all the national news about the high gas prices right now. And of course, all those always include at least a few pictures from California where it's over $6 a gallon. And you hear from people from other states, I just paid $3.89 a gallon. What a ripoff. And we're all in
Yeah.
California. We're
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, we would just rejoice to pay $3.89 a gallon.
Ours is $3.99.
But there, some parts of the Bay Area of California and Southern California, it's in the coastal areas, I think it's pushing over $7 a gallon now.
Someone
Get up to 10.
Somebody posted a meme that they're tying in the high rising gas prices with their agenda to get people to buy electric cars.
Oh.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's any kind of connection. The whole Green Deal.
Oh, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think the left in this country is so sold on not just climate change, because there's always been climate change.
Yes.
There's been climate change.
Yes.
But people act as if climate's supposed to be static.
Right.
And it never is. And so there's been periods of hotter than normal, periods of colder than normal. I mean, is there ever a year where it's normal? Because normal is just the average of all the years, and so it's never that.
Mhm.
So it's almost always going to be hotter than normal or colder than normal. Then they make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
But what they've done is turn it into a religion, and they believe that man is the answer, that is the cause of it, and man is the answer to it, and that the solution is electric vehicles and all that, solar panels and everything like that, and the fossil fuels are the big enemy. And if we just switch from fossil fuels to alternative, we're going to save the planet. And it's just another form of humanism, of man making himself God, that we have all the answers.
Yeah.
And so I really think there is something to that the left really wants high gas prices, because the alternative energies are so much more expensive than fossil fuel as the solution, that the higher they can make fossil fuel products go, the more likely the public would be willing to consider alternative energy sources. So I think there's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you decide, when you make a big announcement like our president just did, that we're not going to buy oil from Russia anymore, first your first thought is, okay, his first day he shut down several major pipelines and projects, shut down Anwar and Alaska and other sources of oil from our own. And so we had to start buying oil from Russia, of all places. And now he acts like it's this really huge, terrific thing that he did. We're going to stop buying oil from Russia. But the Green Party, part of his own party, won't allow him to increase production in our own country. And so he had to follow that up with, of course, this does mean in the short term, gas prices are going to go up even further. So where else can we buy it from? Okay, it's okay to buy it from Russia. It's okay to buy it from Iran.
Yeah.
It's okay to buy it from Saudi Arabia, these Sharia law kind of countries.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to increase production in our own country. It's just so bizarre. That's why I told you this Sunday I may be preaching on the spirit of this age. It's just that kind of thinking that just makes you want to beat your head against the wall.
I really regret voting for him.
I could reach through this screen right now and grab you by the throat. But I know that you're joking. What's the meme that's going around? Well, yes, we do pay $6 a gallon for gas, but at least there's no more mean tweets. Yeah, those kind of things,
Someone posted, how's that $15 working for you, when a year ago the $7.50 an hour had more buying power.
There's just so many bizarre things like that.
Yes.
Like even government officials now admitting that most of the restrictions they placed on the world, on our country during COVID was unnecessary and did not help. They're admitting things like that now. Well, did they really know it then and just wouldn't admit it? But now they want it all behind them because an election is coming up.
Exactly.
And so now they're admitting, well, it probably was not necessary. It's not necessary to vaccine your little kids. Well, we all knew that
Yes.
a year ago.
Yeah.
And
but once they retain their seats, they probably know that we can always get back to it. We can always ratchet it back up once we retain our seats.
And I think that's a lot of what's going on right now with the whole oil situation and the whole climate change agenda and the whole how we deal with Russia and Ukraine right now. I just think a lot of it is it's obvious that the COVID crisis is winding down, and they found out during that time that a crisis transfers so much power to the central government that they don't want to let go of that. And
Right.
so it's almost like you need a few more crises to take its place so that they can retain their power and control.
Yeah.
And, globalism is the whole thing behind this, is that so many of our own leaders want us to just fold ourselves into a global government and instead of retaining our sovereignty as a country. And so a lot of these decisions are for the purpose of losing at least a large portion of our own identity as a country and becoming more like Canada, Europe, and other parts of the world, kind of socialist democracies.
Yeah.
We're already a long way along that line, but we're one of the few holdouts. As we saw through COVID, as much as we hated our own restrictions, there was a lot of pushback in our country against it. And these, like Australia and some of these, Canada, there was hardly any pushback, even from conservatives.
They folded like a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the Great Reset, I think, in the grand scheme of things.
That's the best way to describe it, the Great Reset. Yeah, and it's well on its way, because what they found out is that even though in America there was a fair amount of pushback, it wasn't something they couldn't overcome. And so they learned a lot from COVID, that the vast majority of even Americans in times of crisis will go along with whatever the government mandates. And so they're going to test it further. They're going to see what other, it's probably going to be global warming or climate change. But the reason that's not working is because it's just not, they just can't sell it to enough Americans.
The science just doesn't hold up.
Science doesn't hold up. The urgency of it doesn't seem to be there. There may be, the climate may be changing, but it's changing so slowly, and it's not all negative. And people see a lot of other issues as much more urgent. So the government can't stir up enough emotional support for the socialist agenda they want to push forward, this climate change thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm convinced that many of them are using this whole Russia, Ukraine thing to allow fossil fuel products to go through the roof, because that fits so well into their climate change agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, Kerry, they gave that speech last week that to him, the worst thing about this Russia invasion of Ukraine is it takes the attention off of climate change. That's the biggest concern with that invasion. So the Bible talks about evil men and seducers will wax worse and worse. But I like the next part of that too. deceiving and being deceived.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of these world leaders are actively deceiving us, but I think in some cases they are also being deceived. They actually buy into it.
Because they listen to one another.
They listen to one another. They go to all these meetings around the world where they're all, speaking to the choir,
Mm-hmm.
and they become more convinced. And like I said, it's become a religion to them.
Mm-hmm.
So religion has a way of convincing you that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are being deceived as much as they are deceiving others.
Yes.
And that's why the Bible says they'll reach a point where the whole world will wonder after the beast,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
worship him.
Yes.
Because the same thing, there'll be a major crisis. He'll provide some decent solutions, at least they'll appear that way. And the whole world will say, well, if he has the solution to this, he probably has the solution to other things too. So let's just give him more power.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it just recently in Canada with the whole truckers convoy, where they just clamped down like a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
it's just going to become that way on a larger basis.
They'll be looking for a modern day Joseph to bail out Egypt, as it were.
Yeah.
With all the answers.
Well, anyway, I don't have a lot of time since we talked about other things. I have a doctor's appointment I have to get to before long, but we're still in Exodus, and we dealt with the Song of Moses last week, both Exodus 15 and Deuteronomy 32,
Mm-hmm.
and Revelation 15. And so we got them on the other side of the Red Sea. And what we're doing in these lessons really may not come across that way, but is very important. Not only are we just simply looking for Christ in the Old Testament, Jesus said in Luke 24:27, which is our primary text, beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the single text for the whole Bible,
Mm-hmm.
right there, said by Jesus himself. But we're not just looking for Christ in that limited scope. We're also looking at what he does in his people, in our service to him. He's calling out a special people to himself and setting them apart as a holy nation. And he continues to do that today.
Mm-hmm.
That's why so much of that terminology or language of a holy nation, kingdom of priests, and all that is brought directly over from how he described Israel to how the church is described today.
Yes.
Yeah. So it could, because his plan is still the same.
Right. And the connection is made. They're not like a brand new separate entity. They've grown out of the previous one.
One way I've described that through the years, it's probably not a very complete analogy, but when Jesus said in Matthew 21:43, I'll take the kingdom from you and give it to a nation that'll bear the fruits of it. So there's a continuity from Israel, but some discontinuity. There's some things how they operate as a nation that not quite how the church operates.
Right.
But one way I have described it through the years is Israel is a vehicle and the church is a vehicle. So he takes the kingdom from out of the trunk of the vehicle of Israel and puts it into the trunk of the church. But he takes the same license plate off the first vehicle and puts it on the second vehicle. And that license plate is called Abraham's seed.
Mm.
And so that's, any analogy breaks down.
Yeah.
That's one way to describe it, is it shows the continuity of the kingdom of given to Abraham's seed.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the vehicles are slightly different vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
but there's enough similarity to where he feels free about taking the license plate and what's in the trunk, the kingdom, the treasure, and changing vehicles.
Because the license plate's what's registered. So the registry Has
their
to be.
vehicle had kind of broken down, huh? They had some flat tires. Their engine was kind of sputtering.
Yeah.
And so he wanted a newer vehicle.
Yeah.
Take that treasure out of the trunk and that license plate off and stick it on that newer vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's in the process. Here's where it comes full circle. He's in the process of having that first vehicle in the shop, repairing it, isn't he?
Yes. Yes.
So that it can be joined together with that newer vehicle.
Yeah.
And they both can have the same license plate at the end of the story.
Which is why both sets of names are on the in the New Jerusalem, on the walls and the foundations.
Exactly. In the gates
Mm-hmm.
and in the foundations.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the same city. It's the same olive tree. And it has the two names of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles representing the church,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the same city and the same olive tree.
Yeah.
So, that's the equation you have to work out.
Yeah.
And that's the big mystery for so many people of the Bible is what is the proper relationship between Israel and the church? What are the similarities? What are the differences?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, extreme dispensationalism that many people have basically says it's all about the differences and nothing about the similarities.
Right. Yeah.
We don't hold to that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So he's doing the same thing today in the church of this holy nation, and with many of the same methods and in the same order. That's where we are at in the story of the principle of blood before water.
Mm-hmm.
So the blood is applied, the deliverance from death is secured, takes them through the water, which represents both individual baptism and corporate baptism. So in that one act, it's both.
Yeah.
And in the act of baptism today, it's both. The individual is baptized into the Spirit baptized church.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that one act, it is both personal and corporate. At least the way I see it.
I see it that way exactly. Yes, because as you said, the license plate was transferred over to the new vehicle. So just as the Holy Spirit had anointed the tabernacle and then the temple, so it had to anoint the new temple that Jesus founded. And so there's your license plate. There's your official registration being applied.
But in that whole process, as it is still today, it's still God's plan for an individual, because they applied the blood in separate homes, even though it was at the same time.
Yeah.
But separate homes, separate families, along with a few others who may have needed to be with your family.
Individual belief.
Yeah. So the individual who applies the blood today, it's still God's will, not just will, but requirement.
Yeah.
For them to become part of what I call a holy collective.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And that does not happen when the blood is applied.
Mm-hmm.
It happens, they were separate homes, even though they all applied the blood at the same time, they were leaving Egypt at the same time. But it really was the collective idea, the holy nation idea. We talked about this before. It was a process, and it also required the Mount Sinai given in the law and coming into their land to really complete it. But when they stood on that far shore as a group, as a holy collective, and saw God destroy the armies of the Egyptians, I think that's really when it began to settle in their thinking that we are not just a family, we're part of a set apart nation. And then God, of course, gave them the laws at Sinai to further instill that unity of the collective idea in them. So as I like to say, that I like to talk often about the primacy of the individual There's a reason why God created Adam as a lone individual, to establish that whatever happens after this with the collective, whether it be the family or whether it be Israel or whether it be the church, whatever happens with those, the individual can still maintain a good relationship with the Lord. They don't have to go bad if the collective goes bad. The purpose of the collective, though, was to provide, what should we say, encouragement, others joining with you in the same cause, a group experience to where the character qualities of Christ, the fruit of the Spirit, can be tested and developed better than if you stayed as an individual. And so God formed these holy collectives, the family and marriage, nation of Israel, and the church, to help the individual better serve the Lord as part of that group. You know, more than one, several people have told me through the years, why did God design and require that an individual child of God must serve him as part of a group with others? Because one person told me, said, I'm an introvert. I enjoy being alone. I read my Bible, I pray at home, and most of my Christian problems are when I'm trying to serve the Lord as part of a church with others who rub me the wrong way, you know. But my answer through the years to that is that it's actually a blessing from God, because you take the separate fruit of the Spirit. How do you really know if you have any of those unless it can be put to the test in a group setting?
Yes.
And God uses those kind of maybe times of conflict, times of disagreement, different personalities, to further develop those character qualities of Christ.
They're a measuring stick to ourselves.
Yes, they are, aren't they? And so it actually deepens us and forces us to grow spiritually in a family setting or a church setting. Now, it does make it more difficult sometimes because it does cause conflict. And there are personalities that we just don't click with. You know, but what does that mean? It means it requires more grace. Requires greater faith. It requires deeper love. It requires more kindness, more patience. Those qualities that are supposed to be developed in us. God designed us to be part of a holy collective to help further deepen us in those things.
You mentioned in the collective too, another advantage is that, as we'll see here, maybe in the next couple episodes or so, how that the collective needed guiding principles that were common to them in order to keep them on a certain path, as it were, as a group. And that's why the law, you know, they left home. They're 18, they left home. Their bills were taken care of. There was food in the fridge. Now they're on the other side of the Red Sea. Who's going to stock the fridge? How will our bills be paid? You know, so they're basically having to figure this out themselves. All the rules that were in the previous arrangement, they're going to need a new set of rules, or they're going to fragment pretty quickly. And that's what Sinai was.
Yeah, exactly. So even between the Red Sea and Sinai, so we pick up the principle of the blood and the water, both individual and corporate. But even between the Red Sea and Mount Sinai, the principles of bread and water, and you apply those spiritually. For instance, in Exodus 15, after we get done with the Song of Moses, there's a little story about the bitter waters made sweet. And I'll just read some starting verse 22 of Exodus 15. So, are you there, Mike? Are you
Yes.
just writing? Okay. I thought you were frozen.
Oh, I'm jotting down things. Yeah.
I thought, oh no, I'm not. I'm talking to no one out there. They were having another glitch.
Oh no.
Still. Yeah. So Exodus 15, the bitter waters made sweet is a really important. Let's call it an immediate lesson to learn upon salvation and baptism and coming to the church, is that this does not mean you will not have bitter experiences.
Right.
But God's grace can turn the bitter into sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad that this is the first story we have. As soon as they crossed the Red Sea, is the story of the bitter waters made sweet, because that is a life lesson that needs to be taught and learned to every new member of the church, so that they're not knocked sideways when they have their first bitter experience. And I thought, I gave my heart to Christ, gave my life, I'm part of the church, and I want to win others to him, and I want to grow, and I want to love him. And all of a sudden this bad thing happens, and just, it's a bitter taste. And I thought maybe those would be gone in my life. I've heard that version of the story so many times.
Yeah.
And you have too.
Yeah.
So verse 22 here, Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now this is a test, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God could have given them water the first day.
Yeah.
But he's testing them.
Yeah.
And the response he wanted was, well, we just saw the 10 plagues. We just saw God more powerful than any of the gods of Egypt. We just saw him destroy the armies of Egypt. We just saw that God is able to do anything he wants. So we're going to trust him now. That's what God wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been nice.
Would have been nice, but he'd like that from us too.
Yes. Yes.
So verse 23, now when they came to Merah, which means bitter, that's what Naomi said, don't call me Naomi pleasant, call me Mara bitter. They could not drink the waters of Mara for they were bitter. So they finally find water, and it's bitter water. God, what are you doing? What are you doing, God?
Yeah.
We're really thirsty. and we think we finally have the solution to our thirst, and then it's bitter. What are you trying to do to us? For the name of it was called Merah. And the people prayed and asked God to bless them with water. Unfortunately, that's not what it says, is it? 24. The people murmured.
What version? What version is that?
Good thing you're not pastor of a church where people ever murmur. They never murmur, do they?
Not on this side of the kingdom.
So the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? So he cried out to the Lord. Now that's what they should have done.
Yes.
And he cried out to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Lord showed him a tree. So that has become one of my favorite pictures of Christ. In the initial sense of forgiveness of sins and salvation, but in the ongoing sense too, that when we experience bitter waters in our life, we cry out to the Lord, and he shows us a tree.
So the New Testament keeps telling us, looking unto Jesus.
Looking up at that cross.
That's right.
On that cross.
Yeah.
The same source that was there in the beginning is the same source that is there all along.
Yeah.
And whenever we cry out to the Lord in our Christian life, what does he show us? He shows us the same thing when we first trusted with humble faith.
Yeah.
Tree.
Yeah.
The one who died on that tree. So this is just to me, it's become one of the most beautiful pictures of Christ in the Old Testament. God keeps showing us that tree. And when he cast it into the waters were made sweet. What is it that makes the bitter waters sweet? It's the tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's our faith
Yeah.
in the tree.
Yeah.
The one who died on that tree. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them. So God was testing them. And unfortunately, they were testing God also,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as if God needed to be put to the test. And said, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the names of Yahweh there, the Lord who heals, the healing Yahweh of Israel.
You know, I look at this as they embarked upon this journey. He had to kind of put some of their anxieties and fears to rest, like right at the very beginning. Because here they are out in a desert, and they know that provisions would be pretty scanty. And so I think the bitter waters to sweet shows that he can provide all their water anytime they need it. And it reminds me of when the Apostle Peter was called into service, that lest he maybe wonder how he might make a living or worry about his family, Jesus actually visited his mother-in-law who was sick with a fever, and he took care of her. So he showed his power over, sickness, illness, and that he would take care of. He took care of them, and so then he goes out and calls Peter away from fishing into service, as if to say, "Don't worry about your family. I can take care of them." So taking one thing off his plate in terms of worry or anxiety, should he decide to go all in and follow Rabbi Jesus, that his family, his wife, his mother-in-law will all be taken care of. So I think that's what God is doing here, saying, "I'm going to take care of you." I'm not, because their accusation was, "Did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness?" And so you can hear their fear there. Mm-hmm. And so God is trying to settle that fear right up front. I'll take care of you. I didn't bring you out here to die. I brought you out here to live unto me. So, yeah, I think this is a very important picture. I like the way you brought that out, that tree.
The bitter waters represent what the world offers us, isn't it?
Yes.
And the sweet water, which later in chapter 17, the rock that followed them, so they got their continual water from that rock, and that water was never bitter.
Right.
That water was always sweet.
Yeah.
So the idea here is that what the world offers in our flesh, when we're looking to satisfy our flesh, which is all they were looking for, satisfy their thirst, they weren't looking to God or anything, praying about it or anything. They murmured, they complained, they were in the flesh. And that's all the world offers is bitter water. But the Lord offers sweet water, and what makes the difference? The tree.
Right, the tree.
The tree. And once this story happens, once the tree became involved and turned it into sweet, then all the water they had after this was also sweet. So there's just a really deep spiritual lesson there.
Yes.
Verse 27 is kind of interesting. I don't want to make too much of it. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water, 70 palm trees, so they encamped there by the waters. Of course, the 12 easily, we see it could represent the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's the source of the water. Salvation is of the Jews, Jesus said.
Yes.
It's Christ, of course, but Christ through his people. And then the 70, the Jewish tradition was that there were 70 Gentile nations. And so the water of Christ through his people being delivered to the nations of the world. It's kind of a Great Commission picture way back here.
Yeah.
When they start their wilderness journey.
I like that. I like that image where the 12 wells of water are there dwelling under the palm leaves, and shade and such of the 70 nations. And yet they're providing what nations need. What those palm trees need is water.
Yeah. Kind of a mutual benefit.
Huh? Mutual benefit, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we get into the whole story. I'm just looking at the time.
Okay.
We're jumping off pretty soon for my doctor's video visit. But I've been in kind of a panic the last 5 days. Of course, I'm completely deaf in my right ear. So my left ear is pretty good, but I do have kind of a wax buildup problem that stirs up every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
And lo and behold, I woke up Saturday morning. I had a big funeral to do that day. My dad's last sibling had died.
Oh.
And so we had her service at our church building. It was kind of a little family reunion of my dad's family.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me to conduct the service and everything. So it's kind of a big deal. And the Sunday, Brother Perfecto was going to be with us, and we're going to take him to lunch and everything. And so woke up with a blockage. And, I knew I couldn't really do much about it on Saturday. The doctor wasn't in or anything. So I thought, maybe I can take care of it myself. So trust me, don't take that course if your ear clogs up with too much wax. So I'm, trying to peroxide, trying hot water in the shower, trying to be careful about, digging in there with a Q-tip or something smaller than a Q-tip, trying to grab hold of that wax and pull it out.
So far, all the things I would have tried.
And of course, what happened. The more I tried, the more I was pushing that wax down further into my ear canal. And at one point, it was completely clogged. I could not hear a thing. And I thought, how am I going to survive the next 2 days if I can't hear? So I kept messing with it. I finally got to where kind of like 50%. And I think my ear was all swollen and all sorts of pain and everything I was inflicting on myself.
Uh-huh.
So somehow I got through the next 2 days, and then I kept messing with it the last couple of days, and there's still a problem there somewhere. I probably messed with it so much it's probably swollen as part of the problem.
Mm.
So that's this video I have with my doctor, and I try to talk her into bringing me into the office, and have them take care of it properly.
Yeah.
So, it's my own fault. I made it worse than what it was. Here we are pushing 70, or MC, are you not 70 yet?
No, 69. I'm 69. Yeah.
I've got a couple of years to go, and there's still lessons we haven't learned in life very well.
Yes.
I take care of it myself.
Yes.
But what are you going to do? You get.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, you got to take care of it. You got one ear, so you got to stay on top of that.
It made me realize, though, what happens if I really do have a major problem with my one good ear? And how am I going to preach and do anything?
Yeah.
Because I know people who have gone deaf.
Uh-huh.
Some are born deaf, but some have gone deaf. And it doesn't take very long to where it really dramatically affects your speech.
Mm.
You can't hear yourself talk. Your speech goes sideways.
Mm.
And so it just really kind of made me concerned of my ministry and the whole thing. I'm thinking of the worst case scenarios. What if this is permanent?
Yes. Well, we'll pray that they get you in that office ASAP, brother.
So anyway, we'll get into there's some things important to say about the manna story, and God, decided to spend a whole long chapter on the manna. So we need to find some spiritual applications in that story, and then we get into the water from the rock and how important the significance of in the Bible as God and Christ symbolized by a rock and stone.
Yeah.
That's too important to pass up.
Yeah. And as far as the manna story, that doesn't go away, does it? It shows up in the New Testament.
Yeah. So we won't get Israel to Mount Sinai till chapter 19. So probably all of next lesson, let's try to go through chapter 16, 17, and 18 and get them to Sinai, because there's just so much in chapter 19 and 20 that we really need to camp out maybe a few sessions on.
Okay.
I think you have a few partial videos or something to show about the real Mount Sinai, and we'll see if we can get that worked out to share with our viewers. And so I think we'll leave it here until next time. Sorry, everyone, for the, we took enough time on two old guys discussing weather and politics to get the actual Bible. So we'll try to correct that next time. All part of our experience of life, isn't it?
It is.
Weather and politics.
Mm-hmm.
They say, you drive by these group of old men in the donut shops or the coffee shops, and especially in ag country like where I live. And I've been told that's mainly what they talk about is weather and politics.
Yes.
So, we're getting that age.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with each other.
Yeah. But like the old three-legged milk stool, we have a third leg, and that's the Bible. So we're really trying to stabilize the whole conversation.
We just ask our viewers to be patient. Of course, the great thing about YouTube is that you can fast forward and find out where they start talking about the Bible.
That's right.
And forget about the other part.
Yes.
But, what we say about the weather and politics is so important that you need to listen to that too.
Yes. Yes, because usually it's a lead into our Bible study.
Unless our viewers are saying, I want to watch these videos to escape talking about the weather and politics. I can hear that elsewhere.
Yeah, they probably could. Yeah.
Okay, Mike, sorry I have to kind of cut it short today.
All right. Well, you have a good Zoom doctor visit, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's session, and we'll meet you on the other side.
Okay, Mike, take care.
You too. Bye.